Hi, Peggy.
Good to work.
Good work.
Keep on changing your background.
Yeah, it was too cold, the other one.
You look like you're in Tahiti.
Yes.
Not bad. Not bad.
No.
How's Anna?
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Jojo?
All right.
Yeah, good.
Shavua Tov.
Shavuot tov.
Hi, Bernie.
Hi, good evening. Good work.
Tov.
Shuvah.
Is Tammy in New York?
Yeah, she's having a wonderful time. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Is with Hanele?
Yeah, kindernijnig, alle de.
Nice, very
Wonderful.
nice. Especially when they tell you to come, you have to run.
I know you were encouraging her. I know. Good for you.
Right. We
I'm,
love
I'm surviving.
Right, you're surviving?
How long does she go for?
She's coming back Monday. She's good.
Was it a week?
Yeah.
Nice.
Good, nice. I'm sure she's enjoying.
Hello. Good work.
Good work, Kalya, how are you?
Shavua Tov Mevorach.
Good work.
Good job.
Esty, how are you?
Good work,
Ellen.
Ellen.
Shuvah.
Good work, Esty.
Hi, Esty.
Hi. I'll walk on getting another one.
Shavua Tov, everybody.
Good
Tov.
Shavua
Good
Tov.
work.
work. Good work.
Hi. So,
Hello.
Hi, wait till everybody's on already.
okay,
Wait.
everybody's on.
Hi, Shavua Tov.
See,
Tov.
Peggy, I see Barbara,
Yes.
Esty, Ellen, Mario, Bernie, Shiner, Harold.
Hi.
Okay.
Ernie, was the word you were looking for last week denouement?
Denouement.
Denouement from the literature?
A novel reaches a peak and then a denouement.
Lemons.
Okay. So
What pasuk we up to?
we're on Perek Yud Ches.
Yitchet.
Perek Yud Ches, Pasuk Aleph. That we last week we started to see fortunes changing for David HaMelech. That through Hashem, things now are going more his way. And it continues, of course, in this perek. Vayivkod David et ha'am asher ito. Vayivkod refers to a census. David counted the people that was with him. Vayasem aleim, sarei alafim v'sarei meot. The reason that a commander conducts a census of his army is he has to place officers. A brigade is 1,000 people, gets a major. A platoon of 100 people gets a sergeant, whatever.
What did I do?
Each different military unit needs a different leader. Now, you see that David is not relying on a nace. He's doing his ishtadlus, natural ishtadlus, which we are commanded to do. Or ein somchin ala nes. He's doing what he has to do as a military commander to set up his army properly. So let's welcome Judy.
Wait, let her get on first.
I see
No,
Judy.
No, she's getting on. It says-
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So Judy Millman has joined us. Yeah. Judy is also an accomplished Navi teacher. And I remember she's taught Navi, I think, in Eula.
Trying to figure it out.
Oh, great to see you, Judy. Great
She's
to
trying
hear you.
Get on here. Wait 1 minute.
I think I'm on.
Okay, yes, we hear you.
So start over. and-
We welcomed you, Judy. I said you also have a history of being an
Intervene.
accomplished Navi teacher. We have a few Navi experts in our group. We welcome everyone's participation. So we're on Perek Yud Ches, Pasuk Aleph. Last week,
Shmuel Bet.
we started to see the fortunes turning back into David's favor in his war against Avshalom. And Pasuk Aleph talks about Vayifkod David et Amer Sheito. David takes a census. He needs to know how many people he has in his army in order to set up the various officers that are going to conduct his army. Now, the Mizrahi, the commenter on Rashi, mentions and asks a kasha from this episode, how could David here count the people? We have been warned, ki tisad rosh b'nei Yisrael of kudehem, v'natnu ish kofer nafsho in Parshas Kisisa, we bifkodotam loibem negef bifkodotam, in order to avoid counting a magefa, you can't count the Jewish people by their head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to collect a machzis shekel, which is what Moshe Rabbeinu was told to do. And that's why they were able to conduct a census. How could it be that not only was there not a magefa here, but we're going to see soon that David HaMelech had hatzlacha. And you're not allowed to count Klal Yisrael. How could it be that there wasn't a magefa? So one answer is, here he's not counting all of Klal Yisrael. He's counting the men that went with him. So when you count a group of Yisrael, one pshat says, there's no problem. So later on in Shmuel Bet, we're going to see that David conducts another census. And there, he counted all of Klal Yisrael and Yehuda, and there was a magefa. But here, l'chura, there wasn't a magefa because he didn't try to count all of Klal Yisrael. However, the Sfas Emes in Masechta Yuma Chav Beis says that no, even when you count a portion, there's an issur, and we see this from when Shaul HaMelech was commanded to gather an army to fight Amalek. It says over there, "Vayifkedem bebezek eitzel Shaul." Shaul had to, each one gave him a coin, or there's a machlok is exactly what bezek was, but there they didn't count the people by skull; they counted them by an item, and it's therefore we see from that pasuk in Shmuel that it's prohibited to count even a small group of Yisrael. So, in fact, those men of us, the men in the group here, who go to minyan every morning, and when we're waiting to assemble a minyan, we don't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We use a pasuk, Hoshia et amecha, uvarech et nachlatecha, ureven hasem ad olam. That pasuk has 10 words in it, and you count based on the pasuk. So we see even for a dvar mitzvah, for a minyan. So this kasha of the Mizrahi needs a resolution. So the Minchas Yehuda, who was a Perush, says Eina Chanami, that David here didn't count them by skull. He did collect something from them, and he made sure to count them in the standard halachic manner. Okay. Pasuk Beis. Vayishlach David et ha'am hashlishit biyad Yoav v'hashlishit biyad Avishai ben Sruya achi Yoav. Yoav is Yoav ben Sruya, and his brother is Avishai ben Sruya. Vashlish is biyad Itai Agiti. He divided the army in these three generals. Vayom HaMelech el ha'am yatso eitzei gam ani imachem. And David says, I will go out with you as well. And like we've learned all along, Jewish kings are supposed to go ahead of their armies. Some give pshat. The Kilas Yaakov says he divided them up so that Avshalom wouldn't know where David is among the three groups. Now the Rambam, there's a shaila from the Rinat Tzedek. The Rambam says in Hilchas Malachim, Ein ma'amidi melech mikal gerim. You cannot appoint somebody in charge as a king or even as a general. And Itai Agiti was Nizgayer, was a convert. And how could David appoint him? So the basic answer is he didn't have complete sorah. He was just in charge of part of the army. And or Rashi in Kiddushin, which discusses this sugya, says that his group was his own group. It wasn't among the Miyuchasim with Yoav and Avishai. Okay, Pasuk Gimel.
Can I just say something, Ernie? To add from the Mayam Loes, he talks about David putting the various, each one of the three groupings, one behind the other. So one would do battle first, and as they wearied, they would change. The next flank would come forward and they would go back. But interestingly, he then compares it to what's said in Tehillim, where David recounts by allusion to this battle. When we daven Hallel, when we say in Min HaMeitzar, it says Yemin Hashem Osechoil, Yemin Hashem Romema, Yemin Hashem Osechoil. That's the three divisions that he's referring to here.
Very nice. Very nice. So that when we say that kapitel in Hallel, we should have this in mind. Very good. Pasuk Gimel. Vayomer ha'am lo teitzei. So the Am is protective of David. They say to David, no, you don't go with us. Ki im nanus lo yasimu eleinu leiv. If we run away, they won't pay attention to us. Vim yamutu chetzienu lo yasimu eleinu leiv. Even if half of us die, they are out to kill you. Ki ata kamonu asar alafim. You are like 10,000 of one of us. Ve'ata tov ki tielanu me'ir la'azor. Better for you to stay in the city. And the Targum Yonasan, the Rashi quotes it. You should stay, and your davening will be greater than 10,000 people fighting. They always talk about in Israel that you have the Tzva Haganah Yisrael, but you have the Bnei Yeshiva that are davening. There's a raya from here that we need both. You need a strong army, and you need people to daven as well. The Bereshis Rabbah says that Vayishma, we laned it in this week's parsha that when Hagar was sent out with Yishmael, it said Vayishma Elokim et kol anar. Hashem listened to the tefillah of Yishmael. Mikan, says Bereshis Rabbah, that when someone is sick, the community davens for him. But you should know, the person davening for himself has more power than anybody. We learn that from this pasuk, that when Yishmael davened for himself, by Yishmael Elokim, who did he listen to? Et kol anar. U'mnei sheDavid hayat tzarich az le'ezra lachen tfilaso ha'ison nachshavas kiyoser, says the Musar Nevi'im, that since David was the one who was a threat by Avshalom, his tfilos, the people recognized would be very powerful, and he was more valuable for them to stay in the city in Daven than to even lead in the army, even though he's a great military leader. Now the Malbim says that that it was a military stratagem, that Avshalom would think, well, if David is in the city he must have a relief column with him. There must be a large group of people with David. So Avshalom maybe would keep a part of his army just away because he was afraid that a relief column would come with David. So the way the Malbim is learning, it was also a strategic view.
But David is not in Yerushalayim now. He had escaped.
He had escaped, but it sounds like that he came back because he came back to the suburbs of Yerushalayim, because when it says the ear, it's referring to Yerushalayim again here. Because remember, Avshalom is not in Yerushalayim. Avshalom has gone with his army out. We're going to see they were close to the Ever Yarden. So they were far away. So maybe David has now come back to Yerushalayim.
All right, because originally
Originally they escaped from Yerushalayim, correct. Now, on top of what Bernie said regarding the capital there in Hallel, we should know that the capital of Lamnatseach, that we say between Ashrei and Uvalat Zion, capital Chaf, Yancha Hashem b'yom tzara. This is the tefillah that David davened when he sent Yoav and Israel to the battle. And he was in Yerushalayim and davening. That's what Rashi says in Tehillim Chav. And Sanhedrin Memtes says, Ilmole David lo asa Yoav milchama. In fact, if it wasn't for David, Yoav would not have been able to conduct war. This makes me think of an episode in Chumash, which is Moshe Rabbeinu up on the mountain, and they put two rocks under his arms when Yoshua went out to battle Amalek. When we read it on Purim, right? The chiyadav shel Moshe oisos milchama. No, but when the people saw Moshe's arms up, they were mistakel klape mala, and they davened. So again, that milchama goes along with tefillah.
So the other thing that I see here is that it's really Avshalom and his army were there to harm or kill David HaMelech, not all the other Jews who were there, right? So the Me'am says, as a rule, the prayers of a sick person on his own behalf are far more effective than the prayers of which others pray for him. So basically, his troops were telling him, go to Yerushalayim and pray there by the Shar, because your tefillah will save you more than all of us fighting.
Right, like we said, the pasuk about Kol Anar Asher Usham. That's what's Breish Yishraba, that the Chol himself has more power than other people doubting for him. And the Musar Nevi'im points out that this tefillah David used to use every time that he sent Yoav to battle. And that's in a Chanami. Oh, here also, we welcome, Suzanne is also joining us. Welcome, Suzanne. We're on Pasuk Gimel, Perek Yud Ches. We're talking about the Tefillah Lamnatseach, Yancha Hashem b'yom tzara, Tehillim Chaf, that we say between Asher and Zion. This is the fact that we daven this every day. I want to read the words of the Musar Nevi'im. It's beautiful. Every day we daven because we're going to go out to work, we're going to go out to teach, whatever we're going to do that day. We're going to have our own ishtadlus. Aval ikar ha'ezra v'Yeshua ba mikodesh haynu me'ez HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why ein oimim lamnatzech be'ez yomim Shem lo yotzu b'mulchama. Now, those of us who daven on a daily basis in Minyan, we're very meduyik on what days we say tachanun, and there's little paragraphs that describe this day, this day, this day, and the same thing for Lam Natseach, but there's a huge difference. There are many less days there are many more days that we don't say tachnun, but we do say Lam Natseach. For example, this is like Erev Pesach, the Erev Yom Kippur, we don't say Lam Natseach because this was a day that was not set up for Good Milchama. There's many more days where we say Lam Natseach, even though we are not saying Tachnun on that day. And the Mishnah Berurah in Kuf Lamed Aleph brings all of that. So Lam Natseach is a very important tefillah to say. When we say it in the morning, we should think we are going to have Ishtadlus. Just like David HaMelech and his army had Ishtadlus. He counted, he made generals, he divided it up tens and hundreds. He didn't just rely on a nays, he did it Ishtadlus. But we have to understand that the tefillah, Lam Natseach, also has to be done. Okay, a lot of very practical things in this parak. Pasuk Dalet. Vayomer lehem HaMelech. Okay, he agrees. I will follow what you say. Vayamod HaMelech al Yad Hashar. He stayed at the gate of the city. Some say it was the Ir Machanoim, not Yerushalayim, so there's a debate on that. And the hundreds and thousands that were in David's army went out to the battle against Avshalom. When it says Vayamod HaMelech, Amida always refers to tefillah. That's what we call our Shmona Esrei, Amida. In Brachos, it says the Ein Amida Elo Tefillah. It's a remez that this was referring to his davening. Pasuk Hey. Vayitzav HaMelech et Yoav ve'et Avishai ve'et Itai lemor. Hashem commands, David commands his three generals. Very important command he gives here. La'atli lanar l'Avshalom. Be careful. Treat my son Avshalom gently. Don't kill him. Have mercy on him. V'chol ha'am shamu b'tzavot ha'melech et kol hasarim. This wasn't done secretly. All the people heard what David instructed the generals to do, al dvar Avshalom. Now, the Radak says that he had Rachamim as a father on a child. The Ralbag learns differently. The Ralbag says that the David felt that everything that's happening to him is because of the sin of Bathsheba. And Avshalom is just the vehicle Hashem is using through the Gzeres Hashem on David. Like when the Navi Nasan told David after the Chet of Bathsheba, Hineni mekim alecha ra meBeisecha. So he understood the Beisecha was Avshalom. And Avshalom doesn't have he's not part of this. And therefore, David HaMelech did not want him killed. And in fact, David felt that the main instigator was Achitophel, our instigator last week, who hung himself. Last week we discussed the whole issue of suicide and burial, but David felt that Achitophel was the one who was Mesis Avshalom for his own personal benefit, because he remember the Bathsheba was his granddaughter. But for these reasons, the Meforshim felt that David had Rachmanis on him. Now, how could David not kill Avshalom? He's a Mechuyev Misa. He's a Mord B'Malchus. We already learned the Rambam, Hilchos Malachim, Paragimel Halacha Ches. Kol HaMord B'Melech Yisrael Yesh L'Melech Rishus L'Argo. So again, it's a very, look, I'm going to italicize it. Yesh L'Melech Rishus. He doesn't have to. And therefore, David could choose not to kill him. Now, what about the principle, Melech Shemoch Lo Kvodo Ein Kvodo Mochel? A king has no right to give up a certain covet of the kingship. Now, David didn't say, David just said, don't kill him. They were going to take him captive. There was going to be consequences to him and to bring it to him. So he wasn't moichel agamri. So the kasha, what about David was moichel bechloida? It was not moichel bechloida. He just instructed that he shouldn't be killed. Okay.
Did he also want to maybe set a precedent that factions in his kingdom shouldn't want to kill the children of the king?
That could be that. I don't see any of the Meforshim discussing that, but that certainly could be another reason he wanted to protect. His malchus is going to be forever. He wants the whole, like by the Goyish kings are always killing the family, and maybe he wanted to prevent that from being established as a precedent. Pasuk Vav. Vayetzei ha'masadeh likrat Yisrael, v'tiyah milchama b'yar Ephraim. And the battle is joined in the forest of Ephraim. Now, what's going on here? We already said, remember, David and his people had crossed across the Yarden. They're Avera Yarden. And the Ephraim is not Avera Yarden. Ephraim is near Yerushalayim. It's not on the other side of the Jordan River. So one of the Tnoim, Yoshua had 10 Tnoim. One of them was that the people could graze their lands and everybody else's shefet. And Chazal say in Baba Kama, Pei Aleph, that Bnei Ephraim would take their animals and cross the Jordan and graze their animals there. So it was called Yar Ephraim. Rashi, in fact, says, which is that they had the right to plow.
It also says that it was a treaty with Shevet Menashe because they each got to use some part of the land from the other Shevet that was mutually beneficial.
So
Har Ephraim was in Menashe, in the territory of Menashe, and Menashe came on the other side, from the other side, and used the woodlands in Ephraim.
So the Musar Nevi'im said, why did they decide to set up the battle there on the other side of the Jordan, east of the Jordan? So the Musar Nevi'im says, "Lekach ozav David at Yerushalayim." Why did David leave Yerushalayim? Mishum de lo ratza lechalel et kedushas Yerushalayim ayidei shvichas damim shel milchemes achim. He knew that there was a civil war going on. He didn't want to poison the land of Israel, and especially Yerushalayim, with the blood of the civil war. And therefore, he didn't want to do the battle in Judea or in Galilee either, because their kedusha was also greater over Avera Yarden. In comparison, it had kedusha, but in comparison to the areas in Eretz Yisrael, Avera Yarden had less kedusha. They did it in the forest, so it would be hard to identify people. Better than it should be in secret, like it says in Sota Mem Dalid. Even if when people are going to be killed, better should be killed not openly. When somebody's killed openly, that's much worse. Then you have to go through the whole process of Egla Rufa if you don't know who killed him. Another reason for perhaps why it was done out of the human eye. We'll see. The Yar takes part as one of the combatants. Pasuk Zayin Vayinatfu Sham Am Yisrael. Lifnei Avdei David. The soldiers of Shalom fell. But Hishama Magefa Gdola Bayomahu Esrim Elef. 20,000 were killed of Shalom's soldiers. Vatishama milchama nafotzes al pnei chol haaretz. It began to spread. Vayar hayar lechol ba'am. The forest itself begins to take casualties. Masher achla achera bayom, the same way that the sword is doing it. Either some say the bears and the various animals of the Yar were eating the people, or they were falling into ditches or stones. What was that?
Let me get a thing.
What was that?
¿Cómo?
Okay. Make sure everybody's on mute. Okay. Pasuk Tes. Vayikrav shalom lifnei avdei David. Vayikare Avshalom lifnei avdei David. And Avshalom happened on some of the soldiers of David. The Avshalom rochev ala peret. Avshalom was riding on a mule. Vayavo aperet tachat shovech ha'ela gdola. The mule happened to be under a large tree. Vayachazak rosho ba'ela. It's an elm tree. And if you remember, Avshalom prided himself on his beautiful long hair. And his hair got stuck in the branches of this elm tree. Listen to the poetry of the pasuk. Vayutan beina shamayim uveina aretz. He's left dangling between heaven and earth. Ve'aperet asher tachtav avar. And the mule left. So he's there dangling in the air, stuck by his hair. And
He
Rashi,
couldn't himself with his sword.
Rashi says he took his sword, made the shokal safsira, his cherev, boil a mifsakilasar, he wanted to cut his hair. Tanav Navi Shmuel also shon nifka shol sholmi tachtav gehenim sucha tachtav. All of a sudden, Avshalom saw the Gehenim open up below him. That's the remez between, by the pasuk says, Bein Hashamayim and the Ein Haaretz. And Avshalom realizes that this is his fate. And he doesn't cut his hair. Says in Masechta Sota Daf Yud Amid Beis, Kol oynesh Avshalom hayamida keneged mida. Everything that happened to Avshalom was mida keneged mida. Avshalom bisaro merit. Avshalom rebellion began with his hair. Shenemar. Uka Avshalom lo haya ish yafeh. There was no more handsome man than Avshalom. Uvegal chos rosho. He would shave his head. Vayami ketz yamim la yamim asher yigalech ki kavir alav v'gilcho. And his hair became long and he would weigh it. Mosayim shkalim be'evna melech. Lefichach nitla besaro. The mida, keneged mida, was that he was hung by his hair, which is our pasuk that we just laid. Now,
What does it mean that he saw Gehenim underneath him? He saw he's going to be punished?
yes, he saw Gehenim underneath him. So he knew that this is now part of us. This is his ultimate fate. Vayari shechad vayaged leYoav. We'll see there's a certain kushi that we're going to see later on is part of this story. He's the one who views Avshalom being dangled, caught with his hair in the tree. Vayaged leYoav, and he tells Yoav, Vayomer hinei ra'iti et Avshalom talui ba'ela. That I see Avshalom, he's stuck in the tree. Vayomer Yoav, le'isha magid lo. V'nei ra'ita, so you saw him. Madua lo ikito shamartza. Why didn't you strike him down? Ve'alai latet lechasar hakesef v'chagor achad. And I would have rewarded you with money and a like a champion's belt. Now, how could Yoav be instructing this man to have killed him? David had told him not to kill him. So some want to say that he's still doing a tova for the melech by removing the whole cause of the rebellion. And we'll see a little bit more on this as we go on. So even if you gave me 1,000 kesef, lo ashlach yadi al ben hamelech, I would not strike the prince, the son of the king. Kivoznenu, in our own ear, tziva melech otcha. You also were commanded that Abishai v'tita lemor shimru mi ladar Avshalom. Do not kill my son Avshalom. And the person who kills him is going to be struck by the king. They remembered when the person who had come to kill Shaul, and David had him killed. Pasuk Yud Gimel, O asiti b'nafshi sheker, and my life would be alive. You couldn't hide this from the king. And you would not be able to save me. Avshalom also killed the people who eventually killed Amnon. Now, the Chomat Onach wants to say that there was a machlokas between Yoav and this person who saw Avshalom. When you're in war, the person who's coming to kill you is a rodef. If you see somebody chasing somebody with a knife, you're allowed to kill that person to save the other person. However, if you could stop him by shooting him in the leg, not killing him, and that would prevent him from killing him, you're supposed to be, if you could be matzil him be'echad meivaro, if you could save the person being chased by not killing the rodef, but by just injuring him, you're mechuyev to injure him. So this was a debate, which is debated by the Rishonim, that in times of war, are you mechuyev not to kill your enemy, but you're supposed to wound him? But Yoav felt in a shas milchama, you can kill no matter what. Pasuk Yudal. Vayomer Yoav lo keino chila lefanecha. It's not correct what you're saying. Vayikach shlosha shvatim bechapo. He took three a yated. When you make a tent,
It's a staves.
no, it's like, when you pitch a tent, you have a sharp wooden, it's like a wooden spear.
Staves.
And he struck Avshalom in the heart, but he still remained alive. And by the way, Masechta Sota, Tesom and Beis, Avshalom nitga'eh b'saro. Avshalom was haughty by his hair. Lefichach nitla b'saro. He was hung by his hair. Ulefi shebal eser pilakshe aviv. He had relations with 10 of his father's pilakshim. Lefichach natnu bo eser lunvios. The next pasuk we're going to talk about 10 spears. Ulefi sheganav gimel gnevos. He stole 3 hearts. Leiv aviv, the heart of his father. Leiv bezdin, the Leiv Yisrael. Because it said in Perek Tesvav, Pasuk Vav, Vayganev Avshalom et Leiv Anshe Yisrael. Lefichach nitku bo shlosha shvatim. That's why these 3 spears were put into his heart. Now, I want to talk about Yoav, the Sartzava of David HaMelech. We see many times where Yoav has gone against the will of David HaMelech. You remember Avner ben Ner, the general of Shaul? Who killed him? Yoav killed him. And David didn't want him killed. Later on, when we get in Perek Chav, Yoav kills somebody else. I won't say who, but he's going to kill somebody else against what David wanted. And here, for the 3rd time, he kills Avshalom. David clearly didn't want Avshalom killed.
it says here that the reason he felt responsible to personally kill Yoav, Avshalom, is that because the rebellion had happened because he's the one who convinced Avshalom to come back and try to make peace with David. He's the one who talked. He was the peacemaker, or the bridge between the father and son, and therefore he felt responsible.
He felt personally responsible.
Right.
Now, remember, at the end of time, after David's death, in Melachim Aleph, God willing, we'll get there soon, he commands Shlomo regarding Yoav, V'asita kechochmasecha, v'lo tored sevato b'shalom sho'ol. Don't let him go to his grave peacefully. But somehow, David in his lifetime could not remove him from being the chief of staff. Let's see the other side of Yoav. It says in Sanhedrin Mem Tes Amud Aleph that eventually, after Yoav's death, it says Vayikaver b'veito bamidbar. Says Rashi. He says he was buried at his house in the desert. Frek Rashi, Otu b'beiso midbar hu? He brings the Gemara. Amar Ravina Marav, Kemidbar. Ma midbar mufkar lakol, av beito shel Yoav mufkar lakol. Says Rashi, Laniyim lisparnes meveso. Yoav opened up his house to Aniyim like Hefker, like a desert. Dover Acher, Kemidbar. Ma midbar menuka migezel varayus. In a desert, there's no stealing, there's no immorality. Av beito shel Yoav menuka migezel varayus. The house of Yoav was pure, no immorality, no stealing. The Yoav yichet se'era ir. Amrav Yehuda afilu munini v'tzachni toim. That means he gave the Aniyim even the desserts and the finest of things. So we see Yoav was an ish chesed. So we see this duality. On one hand, he's a tzaddik. On the other hand, he doesn't listen to David. Yoav is a big Adam Gadol. He didn't kill people for no reason. He killed Avner because of Mord b'Malchus. And because Avner had killed his brother Asav, and he thought he was a Goyal. And here also, he thought this was benefiting David by getting rid of the source of the rebellion. But by going against David HaMelech, he in himself is a Mord b'Malchus, and he's going to be punished after David's death. He felt Avshalom was a Rodev, was chasing after David, and you're chayav to kill a Rodev. And therefore, the Melech who gave a command not to kill him, it's like a Melech giving a command to violate Shabbos. Who are you supposed to listen to? If you get a command from your father, but he tells you to do something against the Torah, you're not supposed to listen to him. And same thing with a Melech. You're not a Mord b'Melech if you do, and the EIM wants to learn that since Avshalom is a Rodev, and you're mechuyev to kill such a person, if the Melech gives a command not to be Mavatel, you don't listen to the king. That's a very good shot as to why it's not considered a Moira b'Malchus. And he had in mind Latovas Klal Yisrael, that by killing Avshalom, the Milchama will stop, and there'll be no more blood spill, and everybody will be able to return to David.
It sounds like Truman's plan for sending the atomic bomb on Japan to minimize and to avert having American troops have to go on land in Japan.
Right, but here you're talking about Yoav killing one person. 80,000 people were killed in Hiroshima, but it's the same concept. By the way, same concept. By the way, the Kli Yakar says, after it's very clear that all this thing, Ki mi Hashem yatsa davar, the Yar haya machaleh b'am Yisrael, the forest is swallowing people up. Avshalom is being hung in the air. So everything is min hashamayim. So that gave Yoav another reason why he should complete the act. Pasuk Tezvav. Vayasobu asar na'arim nosei klei Yoav. Yoav had 10 armor bearers, and they took 10 spears. Vayaku et Avshalom vayamitu. Now, you notice a double language. Vayaku, vayimiteyu. So Sanhedrin Kuf Gimel. Tanya, Hayra Meir Oimer. Avshalom ein lo chelek lo'olam haba. Shene'amar, vayaku et Avshalom vayimitu. Vayakuhu ba'olam hazeh. Vayimitu la'olam haba. And then we're going to see in next week's parak that David HaMelech davens and brings him up through the 7 levels from Gehenna back to the Olam Haba. So the Pirkei Rabbi Ezra says, "Kol oiver al mitzvahs kabedus avicha, ki ilu oiver al aseres adibros. Lefichach nidkru bo asarim machim." Again, mida keneged mida, that either the 10 pilagshim that he had relations with, which we learned last week, not everybody holds that he had relations with them, or that violating kibud avayim is like violating all asaras adibros. That's Zayin. Vayika Yoav b'shofar. Yoav blows shofar. Let everybody know the war's over. Vayashav Amir Dovach Yisrael. And the soldiers of David stopped chasing after the soldiers of Avshalom. Ki chashach Yoav et ha'am. That through the death of Avshalom, the purpose of the war was accomplished. Yud Zayin. Vayichu et Avshalom. Vayashlichu oto bayar el hapachat hagadol. There was a big ditch in the forest, and they threw the body of Avshalom there. Vayatzivu alav galav anim gadol me'od, and they threw rocks to bury him there. V'chol Yisrael nasu ish la'o alav, and everybody else went home. Yud Ches, v'Avshalom lakach, in Avshalom's lifetime, he had gone. Vayatzev lo b'chayav et matzevet asher be'emek hamelech, in the valley, which is called the Valley of the King, he built a matzeva for him, for himself. Ki omer ein li vein, I have no children. Now remember, we already pointed out he had children. Maybe they died, or maybe he thought they're not as important as me. Vayikra la matzevet al shmo. Vayikra la Yad Avshalom ara yom hazeh. And he called it Yad Avshalom, but he wasn't buried there. We'll see. According to the most understanding, he was buried in Yar Ephraim. The Yad Avshalom remained, but he had built it in his lifetime. And why did he build it? Gavoso shel Avshalom, his pride. Most people don't build a matzeva in their lifetime. But he thought that maybe he wouldn't get a matzeva to his kavod, so he built it for himself.
Is there an issue that David was hoping that they wouldn't harm Avshalom, and then they mistreated his body to such an effect? It's one thing to not, to kill him, but it's another thing the way they killed him. It seems like it's
We'll see in a minute. The Radak is going to hold that he was buried. Yeah, let's go through this sugya, and then we'll see whether Ellen, your concern remains.
Ernie, there's just another comment that from a previous parak where Avshalom instructed his men to burn the fields of Yoav, the adjacent fields. And there's a saying that anybody who burns the fields of a neighbor, his sons will die prematurely.
Yeah, so that was the pshat, that he didn't have any sons anymore,
Right.
because remember the parak gave us the sons of Avshalom. So the Meforshim asked, what do you mean he doesn't have any son? So some say they died, and some say that he didn't, that the children had not reached his level of kavod, so that's why it was considered like he didn't have a ben. The question is like this: why didn't they destroy Yad Avshalom if he wasn't buried there? And so the Das Soifrim says it was left there to show what happens when people get too haughty. So Yad Avshalom was left there as a reminder to Klal Yisrael. Look what happened when someone was too haughty. Listen to this. The Gaon of Chaim Shmulevitz was the Rosh Yeshiva of the Mir Yeshiva. He passed away in the early 80s. I was zocheh to meet him. 1977, I was doing research at Hadassah, and I had a friend, Alan Berkowitz, was learning in the Mir, and I would spend Shabbosim with him there. Rav Chaim was alive. And Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, I'm going to read what it says about Rav Chaim. Hayaholech liyadav shalom be'erev Yom Kippur lispalel. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz would go, of all places, to Yadav Shalom, erev Yom Kippur to daven. Ukishashalulo, lama holech lemakom shel Rasha lispalel. Why are you going to this Rasha's matzeva? Ana, ki zeh hamakom morad kan, heim rachmei ha'av ben. This shows how much mercy of a father on his son. The after Avshalom mar b'malchus aviv, even though Avshalom rebelled against David. He was even willing to kill David. Ubiza Saviv, he embarrassed him. Biva'ol pilak shav, to have relations with his wives. Im kol zeh, la'achar mitato, hitpalel alav aviv. We're going to see next week's perek. David HaMelech nonetheless davens for his son Avshalom. Not only that, ve'aleu megan and lo'olam haba. We learned today that he had no olam haba. But through the tefillas of David, he brought him up to Olam Haba. Said Rav Chaim, "Kein anachnu mispalim laKadosh Baruch Hu shu avinu, u'mevakshim mimenu rachmanus, af im ein hanagatenu keshura." Even though we're not acting properly, ki adkan rachmei aval bnos. We are children to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have rachmanus on us as well. And so, part of the punishment to Avshalom is what Ellen said. He had created a place for him to be buried. He wasn't zoicha to that. And it was a very bizayon dika kvura, that they threw him into a pit, they called him over the stones. Now, the Radak says that after Avshalom's bones had decomposed, they moved him over and he was buried in Yad Avshalom. Rashi and the other Meforshim do not bring that. And the Abarbanel says, Befeirush, that they did not transfer his bones from where he was buried to the Yad Avshalom. Says the Ralbag, I'm going to read the Ralbag. Ki rabot machshavot belev ish, v'atzat Hashem itakun. People have a lot of thoughts in their head, but Hashem, you can't go against Hashem. Hine Avshalom yitziv b'chayav matzeva yafeh be'emek hamelech. Avshalom had built this beautiful matzeva to carry out his name. And he called it Yad Avshalom. So there's a purpose for why the Avshalom ended up the way he did. Now, we could analyze it through din as well. That means the Rambam says in Hilchos Avelos, Kol haruge malchus, afal pi shenergu b'din hamelech, v'atorah nitno lo reshus lahargan, harei elu misavim aleim. So the family of the person who was a mored b'malchus, he rebelled against the king, he was killed by the king. The family are avelim. They moinim em kol dover. Everything that's supposed to happen in Avelis happens. However, mamonam lamelech, the money goes to the king. But nikborin b'kivri avoseihem, they are buried in the family plot. Aval, kol haruge beitin. Let's say a person committed murder or violated Shabbos, and Beis Din kill him through skila or whatever the method of killing was. Ein misavim aleim. There's no avelis. They're not buried in the family prat. That once the flesh decomposes, they could be transferred to the kever avos, and the money goes to the family. So you can learn different pshat according to Radak that he was. So they thought that the way he was killed was because he was Haruglafi Bezdin, and that's why they threw him where they threw him, so there'd be decomposition. Eventually they transferred him. According to all the other people, Like Rashi, Nabarbanel, he's a Mord b'Malchus, and then he wasn't allowed to be buried in Kivrei Avos.
And you remember that a number of prakim back, it said that Avshalom lost 10 years of his life because he slept with the 10 concubines of David HaMelech. So that's hinted to here in the pasuk. The word b'chayav is usually spelled with double yud. But if you look here, it's only a single yud. So that's what the Mamloe says. That references the fact that he lost 10 years of his life because of what he had done.
Nice. That's what. Yeah. There's a kriv. There's a kri uksiv. We read it chayav, but it's written with only one yud. Very good. Okay, that's matseva inyan. Yutet. Let's try to come to a conclusion. Vachimatz ben Sadok Amar. Remember, Achimatz is one of the spies that David HaMelech left in Avshalom's camp, but now is part of the battle against Avshalom. Arutza Navavashos HaMelech, I'm going to go and give the news to the king, Kishvato Hashem miyad oivav, that Hashem is judged against his enemy. Now, the Shulchan Aruch in Yoredeya, Hilchos Avelis, very interesting halach. Somebody passed away, and the family member has not been informed. There's no requirement that you tell the person, even by a parent. There's a pasuk in Mishlei, umotzi diba uksil. A person who says a bad thing, he's a fool. In fact, mutar lazmina l'suda seirusim n'isurim kol simcha, given sheni yodeya. As long as he doesn't know that he's lost a relative, you can invite him to a wedding. So why was it in such a rush for Achimatz to tell David that Avshalom was killed? So first of all, you notice he didn't say Avshalom was killed. He did it b'derech chachma, shvato Hashem miyad oivav. He didn't say b'feirush that Avshalom died. That you're supposed to do it derech remez. And you're supposed to tell, that's how you're supposed to tell a family member. And others say, the Kli Yakar says, he thought it was a B'sorah Toiva, because now it's going to be peace, and the war is going to end.
But Ernie, it defies, but he knew, I mean, he should have known that David did not want to have Avshalom killed, so that it would not be news that David would be happy about. So
Barbara's good point. Now, not only that, he's rushing here, a rutza. So if you remember, in Perek Tet Zayin, Achimatz was appointed by David before all of this. Lavila David kol ha-b'soros b'machane Avshalom. And this is a b'sorah that he needs to know. So that's how they answer that he was just acting as a messenger, the way David appointed him to act as. Now, immediately Yoav steps in. Vayomer lo Yoav, lo ish b'sorah ata yom hazeh. You're not the informer today. Uvisarta b'yom acher. You can do it another day. Hayom hazeh lo tevaser. Ki al kein ben hamelech meis. Because today is information regarding the death of the king. Now, in the army, you have somebody called the officer of the day. Even when I was a resident at the Wadsworth VA hospital, Bernie, maybe you had a VA hospital where you trained. There was a surgical officer of the day and a medical officer of the day. In the emergency room, I have to call either the SOD or the MOD, meaning you're appointed, and there's another person who's appointed to give the news to the king, whether good or bad. And today is not your day to do that. So he tried to do it as a technocrat. Therefore, what did Yoav do? Vayomer Yoav laKushi. The Kushi was the person from Kush, from Africa, who had converted. He was dark. He was called the Kushi. He was the one who had witnessed Avshalom dangle. So he's mamish the witness. So Yoav tells him, Lech haged lamelech. You go tell the king. He runs to tell David. To tell him also the fact that he saw that the Gehenna had opened up from underneath Avshalom. Chav Beis. Vayosef Arachimatz ben Tzedek v'Yomer Yoav v'yima arutzan nagamani achreak. Let me run after the Kushi. Vayomer Yoav lama zat haratz pnei l'chaim b'sar motzei. There's no reason again he repeats to do it. V'hima arutz vayomer lo rutz vayoratz. Achimatz is persistent. Vayaratz vaychamatz derech hakika vayavoras hakushi. He in fact runs after him. By this vayavor is a famous chazal that whenever we use, I want to read this. I saw this here. Yeah. Omer Rav Omer Shmuel. This is in Psochim, it's in Sukkah, it's in Megillah, it's 4 different Gemaras. Important Gemara. For every mitzvah, you make a bracha before you do the mitzvah. So when you shake a lulav, you make bracha sheket lulav, and then you shake it. Now, where do you see oiver means before? My mashma the high oiver lishna dakdumehu. How do you know that oiver means before? Amr Rav Nachman Yitzchak Amr Kra vayaratz achimotz derech hakikar vayavor et akushi. He passed in front of the kushi. So this is an important source of the law. We can debate why is this pasuk the source for this? We'll leave that for another time. I want to conclude. Chav Dalet. The David Yoshe ben Shtei Hashem vayelech atzofel gaga shalachoma. The scout is on top of the roof where David is. Vayisatena vayarvine ish ratz levado. First they see the Kushi running by himself. Then vayikra tzofel vayelech melech levado b'sra b'fi vayelech aloch v'karei. Must be that this is the person who has news for me. Vayara tzofel ish acheratz. Then the scout sees a second person. He says this must be also a person who's bringing news. I recognize the running is Achimatz. He must have good news. Vayomer Baruch Hashem Lokecha Asher Sigar et Anashim. That means he gave the people over to Yoav. Asher Nasu et Yadam Baruni HaMelech. Doesn't really give any information about Avshalom yet. Vayomer HaMelech Shalom Lanar Avshalom. Now the Melech asks, how is my son Avshalom? Vayomer Achimatz Ra'iti Amona Gadol Ishloch et Eved HaMelech Yoav et Avdecha V'lo Yadati Ma. He says, I saw what was going on when Yoav was trying to send the Kushi to you. He has the information. Vayomer HaMelech Sovit Yatsev Ko, Vayisov Vayamod. David says, step aside and let's wait for the other person to come and you stand. Some say he was given a promotion because he so far had been given good news. V'nei akushi ba, vayomer akushi yitbaserni hamelech ki shavtecha sham hayom miyad kol hakamim alecha. Hashem has judged favorably for you against everyone who stood against you. Again, he doesn't say directly that Avshalom was killed, but now the Melech understands. Vayomer hamelech el akushi hashalom lanar Avshalom. Is it okay for my son? Vayomer akushi yu chanar oiverni hamelech v'chol asher kamu alech l'ra. What happened to the nar is the same thing that happened to all the other people that went against you. So just like they died, he died as well. But again, didn't say it befeirush. So we have ended the civil war. Now, how is David going to react to the death of his beloved Avshalom, even though he had rebelled against him? We could see from the acts of Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, that David as a father is going to mourn his son, and have Rachmanis on him as well. Any questions, comments, ha'aros, based on this fascinating parak?
Says Hakushi, but one of the Meforshim here says that it was a person who was an excellent person, that in the same way that Akushi is separate because of his color, and that makes the person who relayed the news special, rather than that it was necessarily an African. But others say that the name of the person was Kushi.
Right, like you're referring to Tzipora when it says that Moshe's wife, the Chushisu. So there's a lot of Meforshim that speak the way you just said, that she was excellent in her midos and all of those things. No, the basic shot was that he was African, but he was Mizgayer. He was a Jew and was in the army of David.
I just thought it was interesting that they different take on
Different
it.
Shatim in Kushi.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
It's a
Okay.
lot-
Anybody else?
It's a lot of details, and I don't know what's the significance of all these details.
Which
Well,
details? Which
came-
ones? Which ones? You mean at the end? You mean with
The
the
whole
two?
thing here, the Chimatz, he came, Akushi came, this came. What is the purpose of it for us?
So you see, I think part of it was this issue of Besora. The what do you do with bad news? And who should have given it? And how do you give it? And it's not so pashut. And you don't come straight out and say it. You come out with remez. And you don't even have to say it. And the din is you shouldn't tell somebody bad news unless so we learned some dinim avelis from this whole episode. Perhaps that's one of the reasons. Tzvi asks very good. There's no extra psukim in Tanakh without teaching us something. Although I didn't see on these psukim directly, except when I mentioned it. But on the, that there was some dinim avelis regarding matzeva, but it did go into great detail there at the end.
Why David didn't kill him? Why he left it to his son to do it, the job?
Say that again.
Why David tell his son Shlomo to take revenge of
So
Yoav?
that's why I read. You see, Yoav is a very complex person. He was someone that was such an Adam Gadol that even though he did these things against David HaMelech, David could not remove him from his position in his lifetime. He had to wait until after his lifetime, because we saw he was about tzedakah, he was about chesed. He's a duality but in a way he was punished because he was moired b'malchus, but not in David's lifetime. And the Meforshim comment on yet you see that David did not have the ability to remove him from his tafkid in David's lifetime, showing the duality, showing that Yoav had tremendous strengths that protected him in his lifetime.
But that was his duty as a melech.
It
That
does
was his
say
duty.
he both had a pos-
Like Shaul didn't do his duty.
I mean,
to
Melech
remove-
Shemoichel al Kvodo. Why he should have done it? But remember, he has the reshus. No, he's asked about Yoav.
Oh.
Why didn't he kill Yoav? Why did he wait till Shlomo to do it? So we said Melech Moelech al Kvodo didn't have to kill him. He didn't. We don't even see that he punished Yoav. Well, we'll see. There's